My story begins in Nampa, Idaho, where I was born into a multicultural yet monolingual English-speaking family with parents who were both raised in South Texas. I grew up with a mother who would say sentences like, "Do you have laundry? I'm gonna wash some clothes," and "I need to change the oil in my car." She definitely held on to her Texas twang upon moving to Idaho. My father was very much in touch with his Native American and Western cowboy roots. Thus, we grew up learning about and speaking about our farm and our horses, making dream catchers and moccasins, and singing songs about papooses. After 5 years in Idaho, my parents divorced, and my mother, younger brother, and I moved to Seabrook, Texas, a small city on the Gulf Coast. Home to the NASA Space Center, the Kemah Boardwalk, and a beautiful view of the ocean. This opened up a whole new world, full of beaches, seafood, and boats. The domains for which I needed language were changing, so instead of farm talk, I could now talk to people about my grandmother's canal, docking her paddle boat, and how to make a bite at the end of a rope. The Texan variety is very strongly used throughout my family. I will most likely address any group of 2 or more people as y'all, and I will tell you that sad things just break my heart. And from experience, these linguistic decisions, whether consciously made or not, index me as a Southerner, and more often than not, specifically a Texan, wherever I go. Growing up, the only exposure I had to other languages was occasionally in movies and when I would spend time with my grandmother. She loved listening to Spanish music on the radio, even if she had no idea what was being said. It was not until middle school and high school when I was truly exposed to another language. When it came time to choose a second language course, Spanish was my choice. I loved my Spanish classes and would try to use the new vocabulary I was learning any chance I had. This resulted in a great deal of lexical borrowing from Spanish in sentences such as, "Where's the baño?" I was acquiring a lot of vocabulary, but not much of anything else because I had no real practice outside of the classroom. And although my high school was extremely diverse, with students from all over the world, one would rarely hear anyone speaking in anything but English. Therefore, Spanish became another class where I just memorized what was necessary to pass a test and then didn't give anything else much afterthought. Thankfully, as an undergrad, I chose social work as a major, which required me to take 3 semesters of a foreign language, so of course, Spanish it was. 3 semesters of Spanish in college definitely helped me to solidify what I already knew in Spanish, and I like to think it taught me some new things as well. But sure enough, after time, it just became another class where I memorized what I needed to and then moved on. Thankfully, Spanish was not the only language I was exposed to during my college years. Sophomore year, I was fortunate enough to have a foreign exchange student from Japan as a roommate. She taught me so many things about Japanese culture, and along with that came fun new words. We started telling each other good morning and good night in Japanese, and referring to everything as kawaii instead of cute. One of her main goals coming to Texas was to improve her English, and we often found ourselves having impromptu English lessons in our dorm room bunks. When she arrived in Texas, the variety of English she spoke was very formal because she had learned it in an EFL context back in Japan. When she returned to Japan, her friends told her that she had been Americanized, and she let them and me know it was because she lived with me and picked up a lot of my amberisms, as she called them. She explained to me that these were words like trafficky, where I had added a Y to the end of the noun to describe there being a lot of traffic. That was one of her favorites. Or phrases like, "That's so stinkin' cool," which I would often say to emphasize just how cool it was. It was then that I realized I did do a lot with the English language that she had probably never heard before. I would use the language in ways that better helped me express myself. Thus, my personal linguistic style was now being taken back to Japan and used by my Japanese roommate. So jumping forward 2 years, I have graduated college and have the opportunity to spend the summer working in Panama as an English teacher. This is where my journey with Spanish went from 0 to 100 very quickly. I would study and practice Spanish in my free time, and my communicative competence was quickly improving. I lived in a house full of English speakers. However, the company I worked for had also hired a few locals to work for them as well. So our main rule was that when they were around, we had to practice speaking Spanish. This resulted in a great deal of code switching in order to assist any coworkers who didn't understand certain words or phrases. During that summer, I mainly learned the language through acculturation because I was completely immersed and surrounded by the culture and the language 24/7. Upon returning to Texas, my desire and the reasons to continue learning Spanish and other languages have grown. I have a great deal of integrative motivation because of the city that I live in, the people that I've met, and the places that I've visited and hope to visit in the future. I hope to one day truly consider myself a multilingual person. I also hope to encourage my future children to learn other languages and cultures as well. I believe it is so important to know about other languages and cultures in order to better understand the world we live in and to build meaningful relationships.